It's Closing Time is an engaging and informative conversation between RentSpree CEO Michael Lucarelli and some of the most accomplished and important voices in the real estate industry. This podcast is brought to you by RentSpree, your premier end-to-end rental management software from listing to lease.
Hello everyone, welcome to It's Closing Time. I'm your host, Michael Lucarelli, the CEO of RentSpree, and I'm very excited to be hosting this podcast where I get to have insightful and meaningful conversations with some of the leading voices in real estate. In this episode, we have another special guest. I'll be talking to Chris Aker, the Chief Sales Officer at Compass. We'll be discussing what's working well for Compass, and also have a chance to dive into some effective sales strategies that Chris believes will benefit agents. Chris, thank you so much for joining. Welcome. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invite and looking forward to the conversation.
Cool. So, just to start off, maybe you can tell us just a little bit about yourself and your role at Compass.
Yeah. So I've been at Compass for almost 4 years now, probably closer to the 3.5 year side. All of that time has been spent leading the growth organization here at Compass. And so, what is growth at Compass is, we are the team that's charged with going out, speaking to prospective agents, and ultimately bringing them onto the Compass platform and joining the brokerage. Before this, I was running the global sales organization for Eventbrite, and took them from a relatively small organization to a large global organization and through IPO. Before that, I was much more of a consulting background and on the sales side within consulting. So, that my experience and history has all been within sales.
And that's awesome. And Compass has been making some huge waves over the past couple of years. I know we were just talking a couple minutes ago about a bunch of agents locally now are all I see Compass agents everywhere. So you guys are really doing a great job and having a huge market presence. I would be really curious to hear, what are you guys most excited about for the upcoming year and what's really on the docket for 2022 coming up?
Yeah, well, I think, 2021 was a massive year in and of itself, right? For the real estate industry. And I think, when you compare kind of coming off of just a record year and a year where, we brought on a tremendous amount of agents and entered into so many new markets, you kind of think of okay, well, what does 22 look like? And, what's exciting for me is the success that we had in 21 was even with an incredibly hot market, right? Agents are incredibly busy. There's very limited inventory, which added to a lot of the time crunch and constraints. And we were still able to have tremendous success, right? There was no inherent need for an agent to change brokerages, right? Because the market was just so hot. As we think about this year, we're looking to enter into more markets. We're looking to continue to expand our footprint, covering more of the country. But we're really focused in on the agent and really how can we continue to go deeper in the core markets that we're in? How do we continue to bring on great agents? And how do we do that in an environment where we can help agents continue to grow despite the market conditions?
And I know inventory, to your point, was a huge factor last year. Yeah. And I'm curious if you think that that's really going to be something that continues on into this year, and also for what was it that you guys did last year that helped agents to continue to be successful given a lot of those challenges? And is that going to be kind of the strategy going forward into this year as well, given that things look like they may continue at least somewhat on that same trajectory?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's no secret. Every analyst is kind of starting to predict, hey, 22 is probably going to slow down a little bit, right? And relative to 21. The inventory will probably still be tight, probably open up a little bit. I think, time will tell. If any of us could predict exactly what's going to happen, I think we may not have these roles, but what's enabled agents to be so incredibly successful is the agents who spend the time to build scalable platforms, to build a scalable business and establish processes are the ones that really are able to weather any market conditions. So when you have limited inventory, but you can go back into your database very easily and understand and figure out how to create in that inventory. When you are connected in with an agent community, that's one of the largest in the country through a wholly owned subsidiary, like you have a better connection of being able to find that inventory that isn't necessarily listed, on an MLS system. So I think a lot of those pieces and components have really led to a tremendous amount of success for Compass agents.
And like one of the things that we saw last year that came along with that inventory shortage is really just a growth in utilization of, just RentSpree, to be candid, because, like rentals were something that you were still seeing a little bit more turnover and opportunity there. Are rentals something that you guys are thinking about in terms of having maybe agents adopt a little bit more of a holistic approach when it comes to their service offerings, and something that may give opportunities when for sale inventory may be low and sellers may be a little bit hard to come by?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when we look at it, at least from my team's perspective, we're not necessarily saying, okay, we need to go get more rentals, or we need to go get more resale, or we need to go get more new development or more commercial, right? These are all different aspects that we support. What we're looking to do is how do we find and really focus in on the quality of the agent, right? And what can they bring to the office in terms of culture and expertise and growth opportunity, right? And when you look at it from that perspective, there's going to be agents who the majority of their business is focused on rentals, and they're going to be great agents to partner with others within the office. There's going to be other agents that are more focused on resale or do a combo of both. And it's about how can we enable each and every agent, no matter their focus, with the right tools to operate their business. And so when you look at it from the perspective of their business owners and their CEOs, there's a lot more that goes into it than just the specific transaction of the rental or the transaction of the home purchase or sale. It's about how do you maintain that relationship? How do you create that client experience regardless of the type of home they're looking for?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And, to your point, agents that have that sort of foundational skill set and characteristics, whether they've had that already or they've acquired those, which may be like organizational skills, really like focusing on client experience, making effective use of technology. I think all of these things will allow an agent to be successful regardless of really what their focus or focuses are. Are there any other characteristics that stand out to you that you maybe look for in agents that you guys typically like to bring on to become part of the Compass team?
Yeah. A big part of what we look at, first and foremost, is we go to our current agent community, our current customers, and we ask them, who would you love to work with? Who would be a great fit for this office? And we start there, right? Because, that's where culture is built. And then, when we are engaging with an agent, so, once we identify, we're actually spending a lot of time up front researching them. Like, we understand, all of the stats that are available through an MLS. We do a lot of research on them as individuals just online, as well as, we're asking our current customers about them. And so when we get into that conversation, we're pretty well informed, so we can really then spend our time focusing on them as a CEO of their business and where and how we can help them. And at the end of the day, if we can't help them grow their business or achieve their goals or solve potential challenges that they have today, um, we'll be the first to tell them like, hey, maybe it's not best that you join right now or you stay where you're at because it's working so well. And that's what we care about most is that can we actually help them? Can they be better off, at Compass? And that's where we spend all of our time.
So you guys are somewhat selective then when it comes down to
yeah. We're very selective in who we bring on and how we approach.
That makes sense. And I mean, speaking of just some of the challenges and just exciting things happening last year, it seems like it was so long ago now, but that was when you guys filed for an IPO, right?
Yeah.
How was that whole process? And I'm sure that you were instrumental in leading up to that point. What do you recall about getting to that point? And then have things changed? Because that's a huge milestone, and I'm sure that was a huge impact that really helped a lot of agents in Compass until today.
Yeah. I think the core piece that enabled us to get to that moment was our extreme focus and obsession with the agent. Everything we do is in support of the agent, what they need, how they operate. We're always constantly collecting feedback from the agents of what do we need in terms of support structure? What do we need in terms of technology? What's the next market we should be going to? Where are you sending the majority of your clients out as referrals? And okay, maybe we should look to set up shop there. And so, and it's a lot of that core DNA and the focus on the agent being our customer and building tools and a solution for them that enabled us to get to the IPO. And so then when you think about the IPO is just a financial event, right? It's a way to fundraise more dollars and create more capital so we can continue to invest in what we do best and what we love. And that's the agent. So, when you think about what's changed, there's nothing that's changed in our core DNA of who we are and who our customer is and what our focus is. What it's done is it's enabled us to continually invest even more and faster into the platform that ultimately helps these agents grow their businesses. And so, I think that's probably been one of, I guess almost a year out of the IPO, right? We're a couple months short of it. That I'm really most proud of is it hasn't changed who we are as an organization. It hasn't created this hard shift of what we need to do. There's not an extreme focus on Compass and our metrics. There's still the extreme focus on the agent.
I think that makes sense. And speaking of, focusing on the agent, a big part of that has been technology, right? And the technology that you guys provide, whether you're building it or acquiring. And even, we can go back. I remember when you guys acquired Contactually back in the day, and, acquiring companies like Glide. Maybe, can you speak about how that outlook has changed, if at all, in terms of the technology that you're offering, whether you're acquiring or building the tools, and how do you really gather feedback to determine what will be the best focus for agents as times change?
Yeah, it always starts with the agent where we ask them, right, what do you need? What's missing? Ultimately the goal is a single platform that an agent can see and view their entire business end to end, as well as the client relationship end to end, right? Which just empowers them to be better at their job and what they do best. The decision between do we acquire or do we build, that's always going to be nuanced for every decision. But the key piece, and no matter what path you go down from that perspective, is it has to fit into the single platform. The data has to talk to each other because that's the most critical piece. And it has to be vetted by agents who say, yes, this is what we need. This will impact our business, and it's something that we should do now.
And before we get into talking a little bit more about how agents themselves can be successful, I just wanted to take a little pause here, and we have a segment that we call Meet in the Middle. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions in which we'll look for some kind of quick answers. So I got my 3 questions ready. Are you ready to go?
All right, let's go.
All right, let's hear your favorite sales mentor.
Favorite sales mentor is actually my current boss, Matt Rosenberg. So we've been together for a long time, many companies, and 100% he is my favorite and really one and only sales mentor.
That's quite a mentor. Next question here. What's one piece of advice that you wish you knew when you started your career?
Slow down. Like that is the single piece of advice that I can give is slow down. And what I mean by that is we all have long careers, right? And when you're first starting out, it's very easy to forget or not even think about that what we're doing is we're starting a 30-year career, right? And for some of us longer. And when you think about sales, so like first starting out sales is an incredibly competitive environment. And you think you need to know everything immediately. And the same thing is within real estate, right? It's intensely competitive. You have to be an expert, and you always have clients' needs. And it's really hard to slow down and focus on perfecting your craft, on not necessarily always focusing on the short-term goal, but making sure that you're growing at a steady pace, and not necessarily always focusing on the next sale or what's the next task that I have to do in order to make this short-term goal happen. You know, I believe every moment gifts us with a lesson. Yeah. And if you don't pull yourself out of the rat race, you're never gonna learn that lesson. And so I think that's a big piece.
And I think kind of along those lines too, I'll add on, like I think a lot of people, if they're starting out their careers, they may lose sight of the fact that building a career, especially in sales or any career for that matter, it's a process. And so when you're starting off, it's easy to look at someone that's like so wildly successful, and you may see them at that point in time, but you may not realize that there was a time when that person was starting out and they needed to slow down and make sure that they were improving their skill set and constantly looking to grow and learn as well. And I think that is something lost on some people as well at times, and certainly for me when I was getting started.
Yeah.
And then the final one. So, in your opinion, what's the most underappreciated aspect of having a career in sales?
What I would say is it's everything that happens outside of the pitch, of like that client pitch meeting. You know, it's the moments that aren't fantasized in movies. Right? Everyone has a vision of how a salesperson is, whether it's like a used car salesperson or a pitch person from Mad Men, right? Or some smooth talker in a intense negotiation that they naturally get what they want because that's the way the movie
sell me this pen.
Right. That's the way the movie script was written.
Yeah.
However, sales is not that. It's not about the pitch, right? Because the pitch has nothing to do with the company. It's always about who you're talking to. Like, can you actually help them? But sales is an extreme attention to detail, to process management. You have to be analytical. You also have to be creative and curious and empathetic towards the person that you're talking to. And these cycles happen over the course of 30, 60, 90, 120 days. They're not a single meeting moment in time and then suddenly contracts are signed and we all go off into the sunset. And so when you think about the most underappreciated aspect of sales, it's the job is, because so much of it's fantasized in movies in ways that are just of a single moment.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, kind of like hearkening back to that preparation and growth that needs to happen and all the different facets that go into that one moment of success, whether it's winning or losing a pitch.
Yeah, and the same is true for real estate agents, right? Because as a consumer, right, or an agent's client, we only see them for a small piece of their entire job, right? So when you think about that perspective, an agent is a CEO of their business and they are trying to go and generate their own leads. They're trying to acquire new clients themselves. They're trying to manage relationships with a bunch of existing clients. They're trying to rekindle old relationships. However, we only see them for one piece, right? When they're showing us homes, or when they're showing our home, or they're helping us find that new rental. It's so much more than just that.
What do you think are the ways that you've seen agents be most successful in making those impressions that are meaningful in those maybe small and fleeting moments that agents might have with clients?
Yeah, I think when you're first starting out and you have a small base of clients, it's really easy to control it without a lot of systems, right? It's really easy to control it without thinking about scale, because it's more intimate. You can have a more intimate relationship with each one of your clients, right? However, as a real estate agent's business grows, we as humans, naturally, we cannot maintain relationships with a lot of people. It's just human nature, right? And so the agents who end up doing the best in creating those moments, right, are the agents who take the time to build out scale in their business. Whether that be they hire a team member, they automate some process that takes up a ton of their time that they shouldn't be spending their time on, that they're always making sure they're informed with the right level of data, whatever it may be, right? That when they get in front of their client, they're not frazzled. They don't look like they're too busy. They can 100% dedicate all their focus to that person that they're with in that moment. And that's like those moments that agents can create. However, again, you can't create that moment unless you create the scale in your business, right? And unless you really take a lot of the work off your plate so you can dedicate and focus that time.
I think that really resonates, especially like talking about scalability and thinking about scaling. And I mean, that's fine for someone that may want to do things part-time and not have a huge amount of growth. But if you ever want to get to really like an impressive level of success, I think you need to be really thinking about those things and scalability. And I think there's also an inflection point where you may need to do things manually at first. And then gradually, as your business grows, I think a lot of it really is up to you to feel and get a sense. And a lot of it is, I think, forethought too, to decide when is that right time when you need to start thinking about, hey, let me hire an assistant. Let me invest in, time into implementing an effective CRM tool or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what you hit on there is one of the most challenging parts of growing your business as a real estate agent, growing your craft as a seller, whatever it may be, is, to your point, you start out with manual processes and you start to see success. You start to get a lot of success with those manual processes. So you assume, incorrectly, but you assume that you have to continue those manual processes in order to achieve your level of success. And it's high stakes, right? You're 100% variable compensation. It's your livelihood's based on it. But every single real estate coach will tell you, if you want to make it to the next level, you have to figure out how to scale yourself. And you have to figure out, how do you think beyond just the next client or beyond what you do today? Because what you're doing today is not going to help you achieve what you need tomorrow. And it's making that leap. And that's a hard leap. And the industry is so fragmented and there's so much noise. It's so hard for any person in today's environment to really understand and believe what is the best possible path for them, because there's so much noise coming at them and differing opinions.
Yeah. I think it can be scary at times too, especially when you talk about things like delegating as a method of scaling, just because you have to really have a lot of trust in people to carry out something that you had taken predominant ownership over. And people need to get comfortable, I think, with the fact that, if you delegate something to someone else or hire an assistant or build a team, they may not be able to handle it like 100% the way that you might handle it, but they need to do, number one, a good enough job that's substantially close to where you were, but then it'll maybe allow you to have 3 or 4 times the overall business than what you were doing, by just maybe accepting the fact that it's not going to be done exactly the way that you had been doing it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, there's a big piece there. There's also, what adds to that anxiety and that element is you don't really know what they're doing when you're not around, right? You don't have that visibility. You don't, like, you have your checklist of the things you have to do. How do you confirm that they're completing their checklist? And how do you confirm all those different pieces? And it's challenging, but if you have the right tools in place, and you really build that out and you can provide them constant coaching and training, then you're always going to be in a position that you can really start to create that scale.
I think those tools of communication and collaboration are key, and having those in place is super important. Is that something that Compass looks at all to facilitate this kind of communication, collaboration, and transparency among teams?
Yeah. We've got a whole piece where we focus on just team tools and team communication, and there's a lot of,
awesome.
To your point, there's a lot of anxiety of handing over the reins to someone else to run, and so we give all of our team member principals the ability to see the conversations their team members are having with their clients, the ability to assign checklists, everyone can see the full view of a client and all the conversations that are happening and all the actions and who's doing what. And you can only do that through a single connected platform, right? And so that's a really big piece of it.
I think that's huge, because too often I've seen other companies, and they, kind of let agents, or in some cases left to their own devices when they're dealing with teams, and you have to really put in a lot of this infrastructure on your own if you want to have a well-oiled team. And so that's a huge leg up that you guys provide those types of resources.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the industry right now.
And it's complicated to get right. I see organizations all up and down the chain where treating teams the right way, it can be definitely a challenge for sure.
Yeah. A lot of them will discourage it.
Yeah. Then I think the only other thing that I would just wanted to touch on a little bit is that agents, as natural course of business, they'll inevitably go through moments where there's just such huge highs, but along with that, at times low moments. So how do you see is some good methods for agents to prepare for those types of fluctuations? Obviously, in particular, the highs are great, but looking at some of those low moments too, how do you kind of, how do you guys coach through that and think about that, and how can agents prepare?
Yeah. If we, the real estate markets, can be challenging, right? And you're going to have those highs and lows even through a single year, right? As you go through spring market and then summer months and then fall and then you hit into winter, you can experience all of those emotions and feelings throughout a year. And then you could also see it as the totality of a year. If you go back to what I mentioned at the beginning, that when you asked, advice that you would give yourself when you're first starting out in sales, of slowing down, it's the agents who are short-term focused and haven't focused on building out their business versus just the next client. Those agents are the ones who tend to be most susceptible to the market's highs and lows, right? Versus if you're building a sustainable business and scaled systems and processes, these are the agents that actually end up becoming the most successful during market lows. Because when you have a market low, there's just a natural flight to quality. And so, if you're positioned and you have built out that system, you're going to be that quality agent, right? And, and you see it come through, and we see it come through every single day where, last year alone, right? When you think about spring market, the industry itself, I think on terms of like transactions of where we operate, was up 36%. So agents would mistakenly go, I'm having the best year ever. My business is up 36%. And I would actually argue your business isn't up at all. You're just riding the tide of the market.
If you were at 50%, maybe, you could say something, right?
Exactly. And so the average, Compass that same time period, our transactions were up 140% Q2 last year, right? So when you think about that, that's not riding the tide. That's actually
outperforming the market,
and building and driving that momentum. And you saw a similar dynamic in Q3, and so a lot of what I end up talking about with agents is how you make sure that you're not susceptible to market highs and lows, as you don't operate in the same rhythm as the market. And no matter what the market is, whether it's high or down, agents are always going to be working. And you're always going to be looking to perfect your craft and improve your business. And so as long as you focus on building out those systems, you'll be able to weather any market.
Yeah. And a lot of the things that we'll kind of teach agents about as well is in times when, even like if the market is low, and maybe it was having to do with not building, really like having a long-term approach to things. That's where, we will share a little bit of information with agents about how rentals are a good go-to. But even working with rentals from our perspective, this is a good way to think about things a little bit more long-term, because number one, you can make some small commission checks, of course, with handling those rental transactions. But then on top of that, it really gives you a little bit of a foot in the door with possibly dozens or more of renters. And so even like during those low periods, hey, like I know a couple renters have a lease that's coming up. Let me check in with them. And that can also build like some really strong long-term traction for agents and their businesses over time, just by looking at that. And I think even like with how we think about rentals, it's almost like the only lead gen activity in terms of finding future buyers that actually generates revenue as you're going. So it's quite effective, I think, for people who do it well.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And rentals, a lot of rentals is a volume game, right? So you have to be able to handle that. And you're right, many of those renters do become future buyers.
Well, yeah, because I think there's such an emphasis on like maintaining a relationship, like post-sale, right, is a big thing. Well, it's like pre-sale relationship. So
yeah, you're absolutely right.
So yeah, Chris, I mean, it's now closing time for this particular episode, and I want to thank you so much again for coming on as a guest. Before we go though, I would love for you to just share with our audience, a story behind your favorite deal that you've closed, before we finish up. So do you have something that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, wow. Favorite deal that I've closed. I think it's hard. I can tell you like the ones that are the most favorite, maybe, versus a singular deal. But
yeah, could be anything.
Yeah, I think when I work with prospects who are focused on solving their business challenges and how can they operate differently to achieve their goals, those always end up being the best discussions for everyone, because we learn something new about them, we learn something new about ourselves, they learn something new about themselves, and you come to an agreeable and logical conclusion, whatever the outcome, and everyone's better off for it. It's the conversations where it's tell me the price, or I'm just not going to even engage. It's kind of like clearly that individual is not open to even wanting to look into their own business to see if they if there's areas to improve or what they want to do. And so, I spend a lot of time, and the majority of my time, focused on the prospects who really want to solve their business challenges and goals versus those who just care about a price and want to move on.
Well, honestly, I think it's really refreshing to see the focus on the agent that you and Compass have from the top down, from the very top down. So thank you again for coming on. And so for all of our listeners out there, this has been episode number 6 of It's Closing Time with RentSpree. And I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. As a reminder, you can visit our website, rentspree.com, to learn more about our service. Also follow us on our social platforms, RentSpree. And lastly, if you haven't, please subscribe to the podcast, and don't forget to give Compass a look. Thank you so much, Chris. Take care.
Thanks, Michael.